February 16th. Dear VJ, oh my gosh, VJ, I have got to tell you about everything that just happened. I can't talk to anyone else about it right now, and it's just so amazing. And anyway, I'll try to explain. I told you before about how weird Nate's being and how he never wants to play with me anymore. It's very confusing. I know he's a high school student and a varsity catcher and all, but how can he be too busy for me, his sister? Does he not want to spend time with me anymore? I've been wondering, do you have any siblings, VJ? I bet they always want to play ball with you. But today, Nate said we could go to Crescent Memorial Park and throw together. Finally! You probably don't know much about Lakeview, California, but Crescent Memorial is the biggest park we have. There are 2 whole baseball diamonds, but during the season, they're usually full. That doesn't leave much pitching time for knuckleballers who don't have a team. Since it was gray and chilly out, there weren't many people at the park. Good news for me. I'm certainly not going to let a few clouds keep me from pitching. You wouldn't. I remember that one game when there was lightning and stuff, but you still threw a shutout. Today, Nate was totally being nice, helpful older brother Nate, not grumpy Nate who always says no. If you ask me, it's weird that he acts so different one day as compared to the next. I hope this means Nate's grouchiness is over for good. Nate says the pitcher's mound at the park is set to youth baseball standards. I guess that means it's shorter than the mound you throw on, but every time I get up there, I'm still amazed by how tall I become. The extra height makes me feel just a little braver. I threw to him for about half an hour. My first 15 pitches were all way outside the strike zone, but then Nate came over to give me some tips. He knows a lot about pitching because he used to be a pitcher himself. He taught me my delivery and everything. A few years ago, he switched to playing catcher because pitching hurts his arm too much. Personally, I think sitting crouched behind the plate all game looks way worse than throwing a few pitches, but it's nice for me that he can catch. He's even good at catching the knuckleball. You have to imagine the target in your mind, he said, like a big red X. Then you throw at the mark every time. I started to imagine giant red X's floating around in the strike zone, and then the knuckleball came to me. It zigged and zagged all over the place, just like a good knuckleball should. That's when the most amazing thing happened. After about 30 pitches, a tall man came up and started watching us. He had been throwing with his son out on the field, but he left to watch me. Can you believe that, VJ? For about 10 pitches, he just watched me from the sidelines. I had to try really, really hard to concentrate on pitching. I'm sure you probably don't care about people watching you, but for me, it was all so new and kind of scary. Finally, the man spoke. You, he said, without smiling. Where'd you learn how to throw that knuckleball? Like I said before, I don't talk to strangers. But since he asked me a direct question, I knew I should answer. I looked over at Nate and he nodded. So I said, VJ Capello. He laughed really, really hard at that. I don't think he believed me. Even though it's 100% true, you taught me the grip. I think I like you, kid, he said. Hey, you ever use that knuckle in a game? She's not into softball, Nate explained for me. He stepped closer to me while the man asked all those questions. He never even put a hand on my shoulder. Got it, the man said. You can't throw a real knuckleball with a softball, especially not with those small hands. But I bet you could fool batters with that knuckle in a baseball game. Pitch in a baseball game? Me? I knew right then that this was a very important moment. But Nate just didn't get the importantness of everything. What? He said. I coach a team in the Apricot League, the man said. And we could always use pitchers. You look like you're around 11, right? That's perfect for my team. People always say, my heart skipped a beat, and I never know what that even means because how can your heart actually skip a beat? But right then, I swear that my heart really did skip. I started flapping my hands like crazy, even though my therapists always say not to. It's hard to explain to people, but I guess I just needed to feel my hands flick up and down. The man's stern face didn't change one bit. I didn't usually pay much attention to faces, but I tried to remember a few things about this man. Brown hair, graying around the edges, a lined and palish white face that looked very serious, but maybe also kind. But she's a girl, Nate said. That's sexist, I told him. Really, I expect better from my brother. The man pulled his shoulders up. Yeah, I can see she's a girl. So what? You ever heard of Monet Davis? 2014 Little League World Series? She goes out and throws a shutout. Or how about Iri Yoshida? She's a knuckleballer too. Played pro in the Japanese leagues. I flapped harder and carefully placed those names in my memory so I could look them up later. Monet Davis and Iri Yoshida, my new heroes. Along with you, Vijay, of course. It's weird, but it didn't occur to me before that there could be other girls playing baseball right now. But of course there are, and that made me want to play more than ever. Who knows? Maybe someday people will talk about Monet Davis, Iri Yoshida, and Vivy Cohen. It's not just the girl thing, Nate said. He shot me a look and mouthed a word that looked an awful lot like sorry. My sister, she has special needs. I don't know if my parents will be okay with her playing baseball. I could feel all my hope go poof the moment he said special needs. Nate was right, of course. I just knew the man would walk away, saying obviously he'd made a mistake. No special needs girl for his team. Only he didn't. The only special I care about is that knuckleball, he said. Now that is something special. Hey, why don't we ask her what she thinks? Would you like to be on my team, kid? Yes, I said. I didn't need to think about it. He finally smiled a little. I thought so. Now, why don't you go talk to your family about it? You don't need to decide anything right away. Then he scribbled something on a piece of paper and handed it to Nate. Call me after you talk to your folks, he said. By now, his son had wandered over to us, and I realized I know him from school. He's a grade ahead of me, and his name is Chris or Kevin or something. I don't know. I'm not good with faces, and I've never cared about the 7th grade boys at all. Since I'm in 6th grade, there's really no reason for me to talk with them ever. What are you doing? The boy whined. We have to work on my curve. Patience, boy, the coach told him. I'm recruiting for the team. Her? I suddenly felt hot all over, and I really, really wanted to break my no talking to strangers rule to tell off Chris or Kevin or whoever he was. But the coach did the telling off for me. Yes, her, he said. Now zip it or beat it. I guess it was pretty mean for the man to say that to his own kid, but the boy was being horrible. I like the stranger man more and more. The terrible boy gave me a really nasty look, but he wasn't stupid enough to say anything else in front of his dad. I noticed that the boy and coach had the same square jaw and dark eyes, except somehow it looked ugly on the boy. Think it over, the coach said to me. We could use your knuckleball for sure. I have a question, I blurted out, just as the coach began turning away. Sure, kid. What's your name? I asked. I wanted to know so he wouldn't be a stranger. Call me Coach K, he said. Coach K. K for strikeout. Isn't that great? It's one of those things that just feels right, like you and me having the same initials. I flapped quietly while Coach K and the awful boy laughed. Do you think I can be a real pitcher? I asked Nate. I figured that if anyone would know, it'd be him. I hoped so much he would say yes, but I wasn't at all sure. Yeah, I do. But Mom and Dad might need some convincing. Oh, right, them. I flapped my fingers so hard they started to ache. So, I haven't told my parents what happened, even though we left the park more than 5 hours ago. I just can't do it yet. Maybe by the time you get this letter, I'll work up the nerve. Then again, maybe not. I'm extra worried about Mom. She has a lot of funny ideas about what I should do and what I shouldn't. Back in elementary school, she wanted me to stay in special ed, even though it was the most boring thing ever. And then she wasn't sure about me going to Hebrew school for some weird reason. Eventually, she gave in, and our rabbi started a special program for autistic kids. It's not that I mind doing stuff with other autistic kids. I don't. But I don't know why she thinks I can only do things that are for autistic children. So I need to be very, very careful when I tell her about Coach K and baseball. It has to be 100% perfect, not like that time a few months ago when I asked Mom if I could quit social skills group, and she said, absolutely not. Now finish your cauliflower. I don't know if they'll let me join the team, but VJ, I want it so much. Sincerely, Vivy.